In the history of football, no striker has ever scored a Champions League goal faster than 10.12 seconds. That record belongs to a man who, despite being one of Europe's most lethal finishers, remains football's greatest unsung hero. But here's the twist that makes Makaay's story truly fascinating. Roy Makaay was football's reluctant hero, a man who consistently delivered when it mattered most, yet seemed almost uncomfortable with the spotlight that followed. Throughout his career, he would become a legend at every club he joined, worshipped by the fans who watched him week in and week out. Yet he remained curiously absent from the global conversation about the world's elite strikers. This internal struggle between local heroism and worldwide anonymity would define not just his career, but his entire relationship with the beautiful game. Every transfer, every goal, every moment of brilliance carried the weight of a man trying to prove he belonged among the very best, while simultaneously seeming to shy away from the recognition that his performances demanded. Roy Makaay's journey began in the small Dutch town of Weken in 1975. Unlike many football superstars who showed early promise, Makaay's path to greatness was anything but obvious. He started his professional career at Vitesse in 1993, a club known more for developing talent than winning trophies. But even in those early days, there were signs of something special. Makaay possessed an almost supernatural ability to find space in the penalty box. While other strikers relied on pace or power, he used intelligence and positioning. But even at Vitesse, our story was already taking shape. Despite being the club's leading scorer for 2 consecutive seasons, Makaay's name rarely appeared in discussions about Dutch football's rising stars. The media focused on flashier talents with more marketable personalities, while Makaay quietly went about his business of finding the back of the net. What's fascinating is that this pattern would repeat throughout his career. At every club, he would become a local hero. The fans would chant his name, create songs about his goals, and consider him irreplaceable. Yet somehow, his name would be missing from the broader football conversation. Perhaps the most telling moment came in 1995, when Louis van Gaal, fresh from winning the Champions League, personally tried to sign him. To van Gaal's disbelief, Makaay rejected the advances. How could he compete with players like Finidi George and Mark Overmars? It was a decision that perfectly encapsulated his character. He would rather continue developing where he was valued than risk being overshadowed at Europe's most glamorous club. After his breakthrough at Vitesse, Makaay made a bold decision that would truly test his resilience as football's reluctant hero. In 1997, he moved to Spain, but not to one of the glamorous giants. Instead, he joined Tenerife. The move came about because Jupp Heynckes, the legendary German coach who had led Tenerife to UEFA Cup semi-finals, had sent scouts to watch this dimpled striker who couldn't help but score. By the time Makaay arrived for €6 million, however, Heynckes had already departed for Real Madrid, leaving him stranded with a new coach and a struggling team. Tenerife were terrible that first year. Makaay, struggling with the quality and physicality of Spanish defenses, managed just 7 goals as the team flirted with relegation. He later admitted, "I was forced to act faster and become much smarter. You had to show that you're there yourself, that you're not too intimidated." The next season showed improvement. His goal tally doubled to 14, but it was too little, too late. Despite signing a 6-year contract, everyone knew the Dutchman would depart as Tenerife were relegated. It was a humbling experience that would have broken lesser players, but for Makaay, it was just another chapter in proving his resilience. €8.6 million later, he joined what would become one of the most remarkable teams in Spanish football history, Deportivo La Coruña. Under Javier Irureta, Super Depor were about to dismantle the Real Madrid and Barcelona duopoly, and Makaay would be their secret weapon. At Deportivo, he didn't just adapt to Spanish football, he revolutionized his own game. A hat-trick on his debut against Alaves was just the beginning. The Riesa faithful witnessed something extraordinary, a striker who seemed to have found his perfect environment alongside players like the rock-solid Mauro Silva and the creative genius Juan Valerón. But perhaps the moment that best captured his emergence as a force in Spanish football came against Barcelona. Van Gaal's Barcelona, featuring Rivaldo at his peak, were still the favourites. That day, the same Van Gaal who had tried to sign Makaay 4 years earlier was made to rue his failure, rendered powerless as Makaay's 2 goals secured a famous 2-1 victory for the Galicians. What made that Deportivo team special wasn't just their talent, it was their perfect balance. When Makaay had an off day, Pauleta was there. When he needed service, Jalminha would slice defences apart with passes that bordered on the supernatural. The Brazilian was so gifted and so volatile that he once headbutted coach Irureta during training, only for his teammates to beg for his return. In his debut season, Makaay scored 22 goals as Deportivo were crowned champions of Spain. It was the culmination of everything he had worked toward, proving that the quiet striker could conquer the very pinnacle of European football. After winning the title, however, the reluctant hero's story took a familiar turn. Despite his success, Deportivo couldn't maintain their peak. Normal order was restored in the following 2 years as they limped to consecutive silver medals. Diego Tristan assumed center stage while Makaay labored in the shadows, managing just 28 goals across both campaigns. critics began questioning whether his title-winning season had been a fluke. The whispers returned. Was he really as good as that one magical season suggested? For many players, this might have been the end of the story, but Roy Makaay's response was nothing short of spectacular. In his final season in Galicia, he didn't just silence his doubters, he obliterated them. 29 goals made him not just La Liga's top scorer, but Europe's leading marksman, earning him the Golden Shoe. After conquering Spain, Makaay made the move that would truly cement his legacy. He joined Bayern Munich in 2003. Bayern remembered Makaay well from when Deportivo had beaten them 3-2 at the Olympiastadion in 2002, the first Spanish team ever to defeat Bayern in Germany. That night, Makaay had scored a hat-trick, rifling 3 simple finishes past the legendary Oliver Kahn. It was the kind of performance that stays with you. What happened next was typical Makaay. He didn't just adapt to German football, he conquered it, but in the most understated way possible. While the German media initially focused on Bayern's other signings like Michael Ballack, Makaay quietly became indispensable. The Bayern faithful quickly recognized what they had, a striker who delivered when it mattered most. Franz Beckenbauer himself proclaimed, Roy's effectiveness can be compared with Gerd Müller's. This was no faint praise. Der Kaiser was comparing him to one of the greatest goal scorers in football history. The German fans gave him a nickname that perfectly captured his style, Das Phantom. He would ghost past defenders, appear in the box unnoticed, and strike with clinical precision before vanishing back into the game's rhythm. What made Makaay special wasn't spectacular skill. He rarely did anything jaw-dropping with the ball at his feet. Often, he was as bemused as anyone to find himself on the end of a drilled cross or bundling a finish over the goal line. His brilliance was the culmination of 1,000 correct decisions, and his luck was the product of a freakish positioning sense. Yet even as he was tearing up the Bundesliga, finishing with 23 goals in his first season, the global football conversation continued without him. Lists of the world's best strikers would feature names like Thierry Henry, Ruud van Nistelrooy, and David Trezeguet, while Makaay's consistent excellence was somehow overlooked. He became Bavaria's best-kept secret, a player the fans adored but the world barely noticed. On March 7, 2007, during the UEFA Champions League round of 16 between Bayern Munich and Real Madrid, Roy Makaay etched his name into football history by scoring the fastest goal in Champions League history just 10.12 seconds after kickoff. This lightning strike stunned the Madrid side and energized the Bayern crowd at the Allianz Arena. Bayern went on to win the match 2-1, overturning a first-leg deficit to advance on away goals. The goal was pure class and pure Makaay. What's remarkable is that even after setting this historic record, his first instinct wasn't to seek out cameras or milk the moment for personal glory. Instead, he focused on helping his team win the match. It was perhaps the perfect encapsulation of his career-long struggle with recognition. Here was a moment that would define his legacy, yet he treated it like just another goal in just another match. One of the most painful aspects of Roy Makaay's career was his relationship with the Dutch national team, and it perfectly encapsulated his struggle as football's reluctant hero. Despite being one of Europe's most prolific goal scorers throughout the early 2000s, Makaay was often overlooked for major tournaments. The Netherlands, rewarded with attacking talent, frequently chose other options. Players like Patrick Kluivert, Ruud van Nistelrooy, and later Robin van Persie were preferred, often leaving Makaay watching from home as his country competed in World Cups and European Championships. His international struggles were particularly painful because they seemed to confirm the narrative that had followed him throughout his career, that he was somehow not quite good enough for the very top level, despite consistently proving otherwise at club level. The competition was fierce, with Patrick Kluivert and Ruud van Nistelrooy as premium competitors, but Makaay scored as frequently as either of them when given the chance. Others suggested his failure was due to incompatibility with Dutch total football philosophy. The unassuming man from Wijchen had no affinity for delicate passes and intricate movements. His talents were direct and decisive. Why spend time dissecting opponents when you could smash in a volley from 18 yards? Injuries also took their toll. Makaay watched his teammates crash out of Euro 2000 from an Amsterdam hospital room, having shattered his ankle before the tournament. 2 years later, he was tainted by the infamous failure to qualify for the 2002 World Cup, watching from the bench as Ireland secured their place at Dutch expense. Roy Makaay's statistics are the numbers of a great player, yet they perfectly illustrate the central paradox of Makaay's career. While these achievements should have placed him among the most celebrated strikers of his generation, he remained curiously absent from those conversations. What's remarkable is that by 2007, after 4 consecutive seasons as Bayern's top scorer, even 103 goals couldn't protect him from the passage of time. Roy Makaay retired from professional football at Feyenord in May 2010, ending a career that spanned nearly 2 decades in the most fitting way possible, scoring a hat-trick against Heerenveen, the same club against whom he had registered his first professional goal almost 2 decades before. So here's the truth about Roy Makaay. He was football's reluctant hero, a man who consistently delivered when it mattered most, while somehow remaining uncomfortable with the recognition that followed. Every goal was scored not for personal glory, but for the team. Every record was set not to make headlines, but to help his club succeed. Every clutch performance was delivered not to prove a point to the world, but to justify the faith shown in him by teammates and fans. The weight of recognition, or lack thereof, that defined his career ultimately became his greatest strength. By never chasing the spotlight, he created a legacy that was pure and untainted by ego. He became the player that true football fans treasured precisely because he didn't need their adoration to perform at his best. In a sport obsessed with personality and flash, Roy Makaay reminded us that sometimes the most powerful statement is the simplest one: scoring goals when it matters most.